One-day wonders. Some animals treat life like a one-night event, and nothing commits to that philosophy harder than the mayfly. Adult mayflies live for roughly 24 hours, and they do it without a mouth or a functional digestive system, because eating is simply not on the agenda. Their entire adult existence is biologically optimized for one thing: reproduction. This is the evolutionary quantity over quality strategy taken to its logical extreme. Drone ants clock out after a few weeks. Houseflies after about 4. Other residents of this tier include the gastrotrich, a microscopic aquatic animal that is born, reproduces, and dies within 3 days, and the male antechinus, a small Australian marsupial that mates so aggressively for 2 to 3 weeks that its own immune system collapses and it dies of stress-induced organ failure shortly after. These animals put zero resources into cellular repair, immune complexity, or longevity, and pour everything into producing offspring as fast as possible. Live fast, squeak young. Once lifespans stretch into the 1 to 5 year range, a different mechanism takes over: metabolic rate. The heartbeat hypothesis proposes that every animal is born with a roughly fixed number of heartbeats, and smaller animals burn through them at a terrifying pace. A mouse's heart beats around 500 times per minute. It lives fast, ages fast, and dies fast, usually within 2 years. High predation pressure compounds this, because if something is almost certainly going to be eaten, evolution rewards animals that mature and reproduce as quickly as possible, rather than investing in a long, careful life. Other members of this tier include the common hamster, 2 to 3 years, the gerbil, 3 to 4 years, the guinea pig, 4 to 5 years, the common chameleon, 3 to 5 years, the opossum, 2 to 4 years, and the wild rabbit, 1 to 2 years. The Lebird's chameleon is the standout. It holds the record for the shortest reptile lifespan at around 1 year total, most of which is spent as an egg. It hatches, grows up, mates, and dies before its own offspring have emerged from the shell. Now, if you have owned any of the animals from this tier, you already know how it feels from the human side. You buy a tiny animal, you name it something ridiculous, you watch it figure out a water bottle for the first time, and then roughly 2 years later, you're explaining the concept of death to a 6-year-old. This tier is where pet ownership first introduces most people to mortality, and the speed of it is genuinely jarring. The childhood companion tier. The 10 to 20 year range is where most people feel the data personally. Dogs and cats, man's best friends, sit here. And this is also where one of biology's most counterintuitive rules becomes visible. Across species, bigger animals generally live longer. An elephant outlives a mouse. But within a single species, the rule flips completely. A Chihuahua routinely lives to 15. A Great Dane is considered old at 8. Larger dog breeds grow faster. Their cells divide more rapidly. And that accelerated growth appears to come with a faster accumulation of the cellular errors that cause aging. Animals in this range include the domestic cat, 12 to 18 years, the red fox, 10 to 12 years, the white-tailed deer, 10 to 12 years, the snow leopard, 15 to 18 years, and the common goldfish, 10 to 15 years. Most agriculturally domesticated animals also fall biologically into this tier, including pigs, 10 to 15 years, rabbits, 8 to 12 years, cows, 15 to 20 years, and sheep, 10 to 12 years, but very few of them are ever allowed to see those numbers. Farming economics decides when these animals die, not biology, and the gap between natural lifespan and actual lifespan is often staggering. A cow makes the point well, since the same species splits into 3 completely different timelines depending on its job. Beef cattle are slaughtered between 18 and 24 months, barely out of adolescence by cow standards. Dairy cows survive longer because their value lies in ongoing milk production. But once output drops or breeding becomes difficult, they are typically culled around 5 to 6 years old, a fraction of the 15 to 20 years they could otherwise reach. Breeding bulls fare similarly, with a working life of roughly 3 years before being replaced to maintain genetic diversity. Pigs and rabbits raised for meat follow the same pattern, usually slaughtered within their first year despite a natural capacity to live a decade or more. Biologically, these animals belong in this tier, but practically, almost none of them get to stay. The midlife crisis crew. Flying turns out to be one of the best longevity strategies in the animal kingdom, and bats are the most dramatic proof of this. Brandt's bat weighs roughly the same as a AAA battery, and based on its size alone, biology would predict a lifespan of about 2 years. It actually lives over 40. The explanation is predation pressure, or rather, the lack of it. Ground-dwelling animals of that size are constantly being eaten, so evolution keeps their reproduction fast and their lifespans short. Animals that can escape into the air, however, are far less likely to be killed young, which means evolution has the runway to build in slower aging, better cellular repair, and longer lives. Eagles and most large birds follow the same logic, with bald eagles living 20 to 30 years and albatrosses regularly hitting 50. Gorillas sit in this tier too, 35 to 40 years, as do horses and donkeys, 25 to 30 years, dolphins 20 to 40 years depending on species. lions, 15 to 20 years in the wild, brown bears, 20 to 25 years, and hippos, 40 to 50 years. The common thread across most of them is some combination of size, social structure, or aerial advantage that reduces the likelihood of being killed before aging even becomes relevant. The human rivals. At 70 to 100 plus years, the interesting question stops being how do they live so long and starts being why do they live past the point of reproduction at all. Elephants live 60 to 70 years, orcas live 50 to 80 years, and macaws live upward of 60 to 80 years in the wild. They all outlive their own fertility by decades. And the leading explanation is the grandmother hypothesis. An older orca or elephant that can no longer reproduce is still enormously valuable to the group because it carries decades of accumulated knowledge, where water sources are during droughts, how to handle specific threats, where food is found seasonally. Orcas and humans are among the only mammals known to go through menopause, suggesting that at some point, contributing knowledge became more evolutionarily useful than producing more offspring. Other animals in this range include the chimpanzee, 40 to 50 years, the Asian elephant, 60 to 70 years, the African gray parrot, 40 to 60 years, the wandering albatross, up to 70 years, and the Aldabra giant tortoise, which starts appearing in this tier but bleeds comfortably into the next. Humans average around 70 to 80 years globally, with Japan and several Scandinavian countries consistently producing lifespans above 83 years. This is mainly driven by diet, social cohesion, low obesity rates, strong public health care, and what researchers studying so-called blue zones describe as a sense of purpose and community. Meanwhile, several sub-Saharan African countries still report average lifespans below 60, not because of any biological difference, but because of preventable infectious disease, limited access to clean water, maternal mortality, and healthcare infrastructure that was often deliberately underdeveloped during the colonial period and has not fully recovered. The ceiling for human lifespan under ideal biological conditions appears to be somewhere around 120 to 125 years, with Jean Calment of France holding the verified record at 122. With advances in senolytics, gene therapy, and cellular reprogramming, some researchers speculate that pushing well past 150 is not physically impossible. The historical artifacts. Past 150 years, the dominant factor in longevity becomes thermodynamics. Giant tortoises, bowhead whales, and Greenland sharks all share two traits. They are cold and they move very slowly. Cold body temperatures dramatically reduce metabolic rate, and a slower metabolism means slower cellular aging, slower accumulation of damage, and a much longer functional lifespan. The Galapagos giant tortoise lives 100 to 150 years, the bowhead whale regularly exceeds 200 years, and the Greenland shark is estimated to live between 300 and 500 years. Other members of this tier include the rough-eye rockfish, up to 200 years, the red sea urchin, up to 200 years, the geoduck clam, up to 160 years, and the Aldabra giant tortoise, up to 200 years. Bowhead whales alive today have been found with 19th century ivory harpoon tips embedded in their blubber, meaning they survived encounters with whalers born over 200 years ago. The Greenland shark does not reach sexual maturity until it is approximately 150 years old, which makes the concept of a teenager feel extremely relative. These animals are not cheating death so much as they are running their biological processes at a pace so glacial that death simply takes much longer to catch up. The biology hackers. Biological immortality is not science fiction. It is a documented property of at least one animal. Turritopsis dohrnii, the immortal jellyfish, can respond to physical stress, starvation, or aging by reverting its cells back to their earliest state and restarting its entire life cycle from a juvenile polyp. It does not die of old age. It just resets. Ocean quahog clams accumulate growth rings like trees, and one specimen, nicknamed Ming, was confirmed to be 507 years old, born during the Ming Dynasty, alive through the Renaissance, the entire colonial period, both world wars, and the invention of the internet. It died when researchers accidentally killed it while trying to determine its age. Glass sponges have been dated at over 10,000 years, meaning some living sponges were already ancient when the Egyptian pyramids were being built. Other extreme outliers in this tier include the ocean quahog's relatives in the Arctic clam family, certain species of sea anemone that appear not to age measurably, and hydra, small freshwater animals that show no signs of senescence under lab conditions. These organisms do not have fast metabolisms, complex brains, or busy lives. They have evolved ways to limit, repair, or even reverse biological damage, and that may be the closest thing nature has found to cheating death.